Welcome to episode 145 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And Don knows this, but I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like to make it in bed, okay?
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of this podcast. And I still got both my hands, so yay.
I was going to go for a hand joke, but I was like, I know the dark road this can lead us down. I'm not setting you up like that, so.
Yeah, that's the thing that you don't want to do.
So joining us today, Bob Pastorella is here. Bob, welcome back to the show, man.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's been a while, and I'm glad we were able to get together and check out this film. There's so many hand jokes I could do here.
Feel free.
But we could definitely check out this ham job of a film here called The Hand. And it's one of my all-time favorites, which strangely enough, because it's been unavailable, it's only the third time I've been able to watch it, and it was a blast as usual. So,
well, even I always go to justwatch.com to see where things are streaming or available, and it shows that this isn't available anywhere. Mm-hmm. But it was on Amazon Prime. I think I paid $2.99 or something to watch it. And I was like, why is this not on Just Watch? Why does it show it nowhere? So I was concerned at first. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to tell him I can't watch it. But no, I found it. Just very strange. But I didn't know that it had been unavailable for a while.
Yeah, it's been unavailable for so long and I knew it was on Amazon. But when Bloody Disgusting announced that they were putting out a Blu-ray of The Hand, I didn't even read the article except to find the link. And I pre-ordered immediately. I mean, it was I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, The Hand on Blu-ray. I'm in. And that's all it took. And, of course, a couple weeks later, I got the Blu-ray. And and we had already talked about it last time, or talked about it previously. I think I might have mentioned it last time I was on, but I know we kind of talked about it. And then I was like, this is the perfect time to watch it on Blu-ray. But I bet the Amazon Prime version of it was probably, in pretty good format.
Oh yeah, it looked great. I mean, it didn't look any different than any other film I rent. It was awesome. So I had never seen it before. I didn't know what to expect going in. I read spoilers because I do that with almost everything I watch. And I still was not prepared for how much I loved this movie. I kind of told you guys before we went on air, but there were parts that I was laughing at that I probably shouldn't normally be laughing at. But Caine's performance in this is so fantastically engaging that I just had an amazing time watching this film. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. I think that's the pinnacle of the whole experience is getting to see Sir Michael Caine do his thing.
Right.
Oh yeah. Don, had you seen this before or not?
No. And what I thought when I first watched it, I was like, God, it seems like there was a 10-year period where Gene Hackman or Michael Caine were in everything. And that's all I thought when I started watching this. I was like, holy shit, I don't remember him being in a horror movie or at least a movie like this. Because he looks virtually the same for a good bit of his acting career. But no, I hadn't watched it before, and I'm surprised that I hadn't caught it at least once with all the horror films that I typically watched throughout the 80s, no matter how obscure they were. I'm surprised I didn't. I mean, maybe I saw it and I blocked it out. Maybe I had a blackout and watched it and just don't know that I watched it.
Well, I don't want to be your friend that points out your blackouts. I've seen what happens to them. So Bob, you said you've seen this 3 times. What is it about this film that made you pick it today?
Well, I'm a big fan of Michael Caine. I mean, I think that most people who listen to the This Is Horror podcast, the people who know me, they know my love and affection for Michael Caine. One of my biggest fantasies over the last couple of years is that Michael Caine should have his own television series, simply called Michael Caine, and he would play a version of himself, kind of like Get Carter, but also like Nigel Powers.
Nice.
But and the cool thing about it is that after the pilot episode, once the network said, "Hey, this is going to series," and you have episode 2, you could hear his voiceover at the beginning of the episode, basically saying, previously on B, and
what's all this, Sid?
What's that?
No, just imagine it goes back to one of the previous shows we did. I could just imagine Michael Caine. His recap is, "What's all this, Sid?"
Yeah, exactly. Or it could be just like one of his throwaway lines. Not many people know this, but this is what happened before. And you just go into this like strange spy espionage crime world. And then, at the end of every episode, he shows up in an office and they're like, "Well, how'd today go?" And he's like, "Man," he goes, "this is making this stuff look really realistic. It's like I'm in a freaking TV series, And that would be
cameras following me around.
Yeah, it's for bloody cameras following me around. I don't get it, And so, I normally do a better Michael Caine than that, but I've been having a head cold, so it's not really working. But anyway, I've always wanted this because it's like he brings the Michael Caine A-game in every movie he's in.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't really have a character. He's just playing Michael Caine set in the Congo or in World War II or in as a psychiatrist who is also a slasher. So
or Michael Caine meets Batman. Yeah.
Right, exactly. He plays Michael Caine. He's the only person that's allowed to play Michael Caine, and he's never gotten any shit for it. Al Pacino has been playing Al Pacino for 20 years, and he gets shit on every day for it.
Yep.
So Michael Caine is like he's the king.
We just forgive it for the accent. We're like, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is you want being John Malkovich, but being Michael Caine. No.
Right, exactly. He starred in so many shitty movies throughout the years. And I think that there's probably, if you read the reviews of The Hand and you looked at it's like, it's what I guess the Metacritic rating of it and all that, it's basically like at 23% or something. But his performance in here, his portrayal of his version of Michael Caine playing John Lansdale, I guess Joe R. Lansdale's comic strip writing brother. But it's one of the best performances he's ever done. And he's surrounded with a really, really good cast.
Right.
So, I mean, we can get into that a little bit more, but I remember watching this movie. I think the first time I ever saw it was maybe on Showtime or Cinemax or something like that. And it was like, they played it like around like 7 or 8 at night. They wouldn't play it during the day. Because, they were at that point to where they were really kind of showing R-rated movies later on in the afternoon. So I remember it was like probably a weeknight or something like that during summer, and I watched it. And I was just blown away by it. And I think I caught it right whenever he lost his hand. So, of course, that scene.
Oh, man. Yeah.
If you hitching on that, and at first you're like, what is this, The Swarm? and probably one of the worst movies ever made. And Michael Caine was in it. So I don't know if that means anything, but I caught it right as he lost his hand. And of course I was probably in 81, I would have been maybe 12, 13 years old. I was like, fuck, I'm watching this. I didn't say fuck, but you know what I mean? It's like, I'm watching this movie, and I just sat there enthralled the whole time. And I remember my dad coming in and sitting down in his recliner going, what's this? He lost Michael Caine, And he's watching this movie and everything like that. And I remember at the end, he was kind of like, he goes, was it real? And I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
And he was like, I think it was real. And I'm like, Dad, I honestly don't know. And I think I like this movie so much because it allowed me to see what ambiguity is. Mm-hmm. And how ambiguity can work and how strong both arguments, both sides of the equation can be at one time. And that is stuck in my head. And in my own writing, I try to be, in some stories that will allow it, I try to be ambiguous, and I always think about how did they do it in this. So I want to say it's not been extremely influential because I really don't kind of follow any of those type of themes, but at the same time, it has been an inspiration to me, especially in the structure and the way that you build up ambiguity and allow a character to be obsessed with something and to see that obsession grow and grow and grow and turn toxic and all that. And I think it's an important movie especially if you're a creator. I really think that people should check it out. Most people say it's for the, Michael Caine completist, but no, you can, if you watch The Return of the Poseidon Adventure, then you're really Michael Caine, or The Swarm, which that was terrible. I've seen that in a theater. Good Lord. If you want to talk about a really terrible movie, we can talk about The Swarm one day.
We should do that one month, just like worst movies people have ever seen.
Worst movie, and Michael Caine's in 2 of them.
Just do a ton of those. It'll be great.
No. I take that back. He's in 3 of them. Jaws: The Revenge.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, I mean, that movie still is forgettable. You forget Michael Caine's in it, but yeah.
That's awesome. No, the ambiguity is so good in this because even though I feel like they gave us an answer, I'm like, but did they? Like, I mean, it's there, but it's not. And like, the more I thought about it, the more ambiguous it got. And then I found myself like justifying it, like, oh, well, she smells the hand at this point. But then I'm like, no, but there's bodies in the trunk. Like, it just kept like, I just kept arguing with myself. And I was like, what has this movie done to me? And that's why I love this movie right there. So I'm so glad you brought up the ambiguousness of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important parts of it. I mean, you got to admit the effects are hokey, but I mean, you got to also you got to consider budget and things like that. It's there's so many things that could have really derailed this movie, but I like I said, I mean, if you're a creative and you're interested in ambiguity and you want to see how a deconstruction of a character, this is a great movie to watch. It's a textbook on it.
Well, and even like if any of these actors had phoned it in instead of like just diving into this, it would have really affected it. But they all gave it their all, and I think it shows in how fun this film is. But yeah, man, one of my favorite things about Michael Caine in this is, of course, first off, the losing the arm scene, just that over the top. But it's how he flips throughout based on who he's talking to, and how when he wants something from somebody, he's one way, and when he's angry, he's one way. But it all feels really connected, even though his reactions are so different for each person. And I mean, I don't know. A lot of actors could have collected a paycheck and just done the scenes. And I feel like Caine really put in a ton of work to make sure each one was a realistic reaction. And I loved that. So let's talk about other. I don't know. I want to jump straight into the hand losing scene, but what do you guys want to talk about before that?
I'm fine with that because I'm looking right at it. I was like, can't find the hand.
All right, yeah. So Don, tell me about the hand losing scene, because I know you loved this scene.
Okay,
so.
Yes, it's the notes I have on here are: don't ever argue with the driver, and definitely don't argue with other people in traffic, because nothing good ever comes from that in any horror movie, and in some cases in real life, nothing good comes of that. So,
especially living here in Phoenix.
Oh yeah, sure. So, he's arguing with his wife because it's become clear that he doesn't want to be with him anymore. She wants to have life separate from him. He's already a jealous husband and kind of questioning, what's going on with her and her life. But what's great is the way in which we're introduced to him losing his hand is so quick. It's so sudden. It's expected, but it's not expected in the way that it happens, because the description is it's in a car accident. So you're thinking like, oh, he got, I'm thinking he's going to get he's going to get drunk and go drunk driving, flip the car, or somebody runs into him. Because even as this is taking place, this interaction between these three cars, I'm thinking that he and the other car are going to run into each other, or at least his wife and the other car are going to run into each other, or they're going to run into the car that's coming head on to them. I should say 4 cars, or the truck, like they'll slam into the truck. None of that happens. What ends up happening is she swerves to get out of the way of running into a car because the car next to them and behind them won't move. And as she's speeding up and trying to move and swerve, he's got his arm out the window, still yelling and at the other people in the other car to get over. And it perfectly lines up with the trailer bed of this commercial truck. And boom, arm is gone. I laughed my ass off. I normally, one of these moments, I'm like, oh man, that was kind of cool. That was a really good demonstration of how this could have happened. I started laughing because of the seriousness of the scene, of how all this is taking place between these different characters, and how sudden him like getting his comeuppance of getting his arm cut off or his hand cut off. And then this whole idea of the blood is squirting everywhere. He's getting out of the car, like he's writhing around, squirting his wife in the face with the blood, and then if this weren't a horror film or a thriller film, this could have easily been like a slapstick comedy. I mean, at least that scene. But I like the way that it was shot. I like the suspense that was created at that moment. And I just love the execution of it. I mean, it's nothing against 1981, but they didn't have too much to work with. But it looked more real than when Luke Skywalker got his hand cut off by Darth Vader. Thanks to the reference that James sent me when we were live texting each other when we were each watching the movie.
I was going to say, was that a reference to what I said? I sent him a picture of Michael with the black glove up, and it's I wrote something like, "This is the best Jedi origin story ever."
Yes, it is.
It fits.
Oh, it definitely is.
Thing. And the glove fit so well. It's like almost like that metal hand was like a hand underneath it, but
no possible way.
Yeah, it's funny because when you said slapstick, it reminded me of something. And I did a little research today looking at Michael Caine's filmography. And I didn't know that he was in The Meaning of Life. He played a soldier. I don't even think he had a line. But just knowing the Monty Python, it reminded me, yeah, exactly, when the blood is squirting in his wife's face from his stump. It was so Monty Python-ish that I remember I actually did kind of go, yeah, because it's just so gruesome. But
and speaking of the memes we were sending each other, Don wrote me in how he's like, how is this not a meme of the blood squirting everywhere? Like, hey, how did 2021 go for you?
Like, if anything, this should be "'tis just a flesh wound."
Mm-hmm.
But man, I love that. I had no idea about The Meaning of Life, but that is so dead on. That's completely Monty Python-ish.
And then you can't really think too much about the logistics of how he lost his hand. Because at that point right there, and really and truly about the logistics of anything in this movie, and too much thought in this film, and it crumbles,
Right.
It works because all these pieces fit, but man, when you look, okay, wait a second. So she's swerving, and then she speeds up, and there's another car in the way, and the bed of the truck just so happens to line up with his hand, and it manages to hit in just the right speed and strength to sever his wrist almost perfectly to where his entire hand came off. In reality, what you'd have is that, he'd be in the hospital waking up with a stump and the doctor's going, we couldn't save it.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're not in reality. We're in Oliver Stone's making a horror movie. So, and he's,
that bum?
Yeah, that bum.
I've been waiting all day to make that joke.
It's a great one too. That bum. Stealing Brian De Palma like that. But anyway, it's just his hand would have been mangled.
Uh-huh.
You know, and they couldn't save it. But, you know, the hand had to be lost. That's the whole thing. Because when you have the hand mangled, you know, if he was anything like me and I ever get in that kind of situation, this is going to be like, you know, hey, Doc, can I talk to you? Everybody leave the room. Be like,
I'm going to need to keep this.
do you have it? Well, get it out of the dumpster. I want it. I don't care. Yeah, I mean, put it in that so it don't stink. But yeah, I want it. I want the hand. I want it. Don't tell nobody.
Right, you'd have that little clear cylinder on your desk with your hand in the nice fluid looking back at you.
No, man, you could actually you could do that. That would be
nice
even
conversation piece.
But I'm thinking have it like embedded in lucite.
Right.
No, and just sticking on it, and it'll be cool on your desk. What is that? That's my hand. You offer it when you want to shake hands with somebody. Here you go.
Oh man. It's a snow globe. Shake my hand.
Yeah, shake my hand. The ultimate snow globe. Woo-hoo. Conversation starter.
You know, but they couldn't find the hand, and that was bothersome to me. I mean, of course, for the story, it has to be lost. But I mean, it seems as though it'd be easy to find. I mean, there were a couple of palm trees out there, so I mean, they could have located it pretty easily if they just looked hard enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's the one thing that I question with: is it real? Like I was pretty much buying into it's not real after having this long conversation with myself. But that's the part I can't solve. Where'd the hand go then?
It's very creepy.
Also, I don't think they took out the side mirror. And if you took out the hand, I would think the side mirror would have to go.
Well, was there a side mirror on the car? Because I remember side mirrors
that's a good point.
Weren't necessarily standard. I mean, as far as passenger side mirrors weren't a standard thing.
No, I don't know.
I don't remember seeing one. And I only recall this because, I mean, growing up in the 80s, you know, you had a good number of cars that did not have the passenger side mirror.
Man, a lot of cars didn't have things that we take for granted today.
Oh yeah,
like rear view mirrors. You know, I think for a short period of time, my dad had a truck, and it was an older model truck than what's currently out there. You know, and I want to say it was like a 1971 or something like that. We didn't have it very long. It was basically a rust bucket, just, you know, a beater car that he used to go back and forth to work. No rearview mirror. And I said, what happened? It fell off. He goes, well, I didn't have one. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, they're not that's kind of a new thing. I'm like, mirrors are new? You know?
Right? That seems like new. Problem causing.
Yeah. I was like, who owned this car before you? A vampire? I mean, what's the deal here?
There are no mirrors. I'm going through Google Images, and there's no mirror on the car. I stand corrected. You win.
No, hey, that makes it easier to at least to carry on in this story, because
right.
No, because you're right. I mean, that would be one of those things that I could imagine the wife, considering the relationship that they had. I could see the wife saying, like, not only did you lose your hand, but I lost my side mirror.
That seems like something she'd care more about.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to New York.
Bye.
I will say, right. I will say that their arguing made me not as sympathetic towards him when it happened. Like, I was like, you're kind of being a dick. And so I didn't care as much. Like, I think if she was just screaming at him and then it happened, I would have had all the sympathy in the world for him. But it just kind of brought it out of me a little bit.
But I think that's part of it, though. Like, he doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's not a moment where you feel sympathetic for him at all. I mean, despite him losing the hand and then having his, you know, T800 hand that he gets, that I'm still trying to figure out exactly how it worked, because it seemed as though there were some cybernetics involved, because he's able to apply pressure to the hand. But yeah, there's not a moment where you feel sympathetic towards him, despite him losing his hand and this thing he made his career with by being a comic artist. And that's something that, you know, all of us who are artists, who are creators, who use our hands for our work and can't substitute, you know, our dominant hand and then start doing that work with the non-dominant hand. that's something that you really think about. And it becomes one of those things where you kind of question what your life would be like. And so from my standpoint, I had that question, but I didn't look at him as in that same sympathetic way of, oh, well, you're not going to be able to do what you had been doing before. I look at it as, all right, well, what's going to be the next step, as far as the next step that you take as you descend into madness or into insanity or whatever it is that's going to eventually drive you over the edge to do what we think you're going to start doing. So, I mean, it makes it a whole lot easier to not feel anything for him and accept that what was taking place was real as opposed to, imagined.
I could see that. Excuse me. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And how shitty was this doctor guy that he's like, oh yeah, go ahead, squeeze your other hand. Like, he didn't know how to control this yet. Was this guy trying to sell a second cybernetic hand? That's what I think is happening here. I thought he would squish the other hand and he could sell him too.
No, it was a refurbished one. He was trying to let him out there with a good deal.
Mm-hmm. The hand, the cybernetic hand, or the prosthetic hand, to me, that felt like, golly, I hate using the word, a crutch, a film crutch.
Uh-huh.
They had to give a reason. I mean, can you imagine Michael Caine? Let's think about this for a second. He did this movie for the money. He's done, and that's the thing about Michael Caine. If you ask him, he's done everything for the money. He's an actor. That was his job. He didn't go work at a grocery store as a clerk. He wasn't a manager somewhere. He was an actor. So he did it for the money. And after a while, when you're doing it for the money, especially if you're not getting great money, you're going to go, I'm not wearing this bloody thing and having to lift my shoulder up higher to make my hands look normal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, of course, Oliver Stone's going to be like, hey, you know what, man, I got an idea. This is going to work. We're going to give you a prosthetic hand in this scene, and you only have to use it for a couple scenes. But we're going to put a glove on it, and that way it'll look like your real hand. And then Oliver's like, but in reality, it'll be your real hand. Wow. That saved him $50,000 right there, But,
oh, yeah. Well, you can just green screen it like you could now,
No.
I mean, that's inexpensive by any means, but it happens a lot. Yeah.
They did that. I think it was like a crutch, but it also gives a kind of a sense to, as everything progresses and we start getting into the murders, it gives you a tool that can be used to kill people, to strangle them.
Yeah.
And that lends itself to the ambiguity. So because you see how strong. So I mean, it's like it's actually quite brilliant that this crutch was used, because it allowed Caine to actually just put a glove on, and then two, it also showed that mechanical hand, when it worked properly, could be extremely powerful. And in crushing someone's windpipe, I've never strangled anybody, but I have studied a little bit of forensics, and from what I understand, it's not easy. Bones break. There's two bones underneath your jawline that can really only be broken if you're strangled to death.
Right.
And I forgot what they're called, but from what I've read, there's some force involved. And you read about, women getting strangled, stuff like that, but that can't be it can't be a fun death, unless you're into that kind of shit. Michael Hutchinson, but that was bad. I'm a big NXS fan. I really shouldn't even said that. God. I mean, I'm like,
I thought it was
really
hilarious. So.
My mouth just gets ahead of my brain. NXS was badass. So. They still are. What's that?
I said I love In Excess. So yeah, I thought the joke was funny. Don, you've strangled several people. Would you agree with all of that?
Well, I guess I should go ahead and admit that I am actually the Scranton Strangler. It's not George Howard Scub. But no, I mean, I've seen the same thing from these different shows Forensic Files, Dexter, what, they always go over like, oh, this is the only way this could have been broken is based off of, actual forced pressure there. But no, you're right. I love the way that this gets incorporated to where it's not just written off as far as like, oh, he's having this struggle against this piece of equipment that is now part of his body. It's giving you, at least in your writer brain and even in your audience brain, as you're watching this, like, oh, this would be badass to kill somebody with. I mean, he's already kind of has that mentality that can easily be corruptible. So that'd be really cool for him to do that. It's like when you see, I guess early on in a movie, there's some type of foreshadowing where somebody, they give their kid their Eagle Scout knife or Boy Scout knife or whatever, and then 90 minutes later in the movie, that's the thing that the kid or now the grown adult uses to kill the big villain or at least save somebody's life with it. So I like that it's there, it's obvious, but now you're questioning, like, when is it actually going to get its moment? Because I mean, we see it a few times, especially that hamburger scene. I'm assuming he was making hamburger. I mean, looked like it was ground meat. But that's the first thing you think is like, you've got that meat could easily be transferable to thinking about it that is flesh or part of somebody's body. Or even later where there's that moment where he's having sex with, what was her name? Stella. Where
Jane from Beetlejuice. Yeah.
I'm waiting for this moment because I've seen enough of these movies where there is this, I guess this young lady who is interested in this guy, and you find out that they either one of them has all types of kinks. Like he either wants to choke or she wants to be choked, right? And I'm just waiting. I'm like, all right, where's the moment going to happen where this gets employed sexually and it goes wrong? So again, I was sitting there zoned in. I'm like, it's going to happen. It's going to have to happen. But before we even have that moment where they're in bed together, she makes that comment about, it doesn't bother me. Like your prosthetic doesn't bother me. I'm not turned off by it. I'm not disgusted by it, which is, for a movie in 1981, I think was pretty progressive for them to actually address that. And then also address sort of the fetish that she seemed to have with it, unless I was reading too much into that, because she seemed to be into the prosthetic hand.
No, I felt the same way, and I couldn't decide for sure because it wasn't overtly spelled out, but I definitely felt like it was there.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know. To me, there was incredible restraint in portraying that, and I want to say that has a lot to do with Oliver Stone. You got to keep in mind this was his second film, and I haven't read this anywhere, but I think to me the connection is really strong. It's like he's emulating Brian De Palma. Of course, if De Palma had done this movie, then the fetish would have been full on.
Oh my God, yes.
And probably a lot worse than what we could have even imagined. Because he would have still been pissed and going, fuck, they're going to give me an X rating for this one, So
I'm going to earn this X rating.
No shit. And, but this could have been a lot different movie if De Palma would have done it. I'm glad that Oliver Stone did it because it was a stepping stone for him, and it allowed him to kind of begin looking at some of the themes that he's actually gone on with in his career. So we get to see some early, Oliver Stone themes here. But you mentioned foreshadowing earlier. And of course, there's the beautiful scene at the beginning, Michael with his daughter and the lizard's tail, which is the name of the book that this film is based on, and that we see that connection. But it's really a short scene, and it's very understated. Blink and you miss the nuance here. But she's convinced that her stick, she finds a lizard tail in the grass, and it's lizard's tail will continue to move its nerves. Even Michael Caine's character says as much. His daughter's convinced that it knows that she has a stick and is trying to touch it.
Right.
You know, and Caine's basically like, it can't know. It doesn't know. And that's so powerful. That's so foreshadowing of what we're about to experience with the rest of this story. Is that, you know, because does he have any type of control of this thing? If it is in fact a disembodied hand that is alive, that, in other words, is it the lizard's tail? Very, very psychological. Of course, you know, Stone was, to me, he was a lot more Freudian than, I don't know, De Palma. I would say, man, they're almost neck and neck. I just feel like that this is kind of like more restrained than what De Palma would have done. I just feel like Oliver Stone made a Brian De Palma film. That's, you know, I mean, it's, to me, I get the Michael Caine, you know, Dress to Kill connection there. It's horror, you know, so it has this kind of thriller, but at the same time, it's kind of got this noirish little aspect to it as well.
Well, to fit into all of this, the last time you were on the show, we did Body Double. Yeah. And I totally got Body Double vibes the entire time I watched this. And so for me, like, I'm not a big De Palma guy, and I don't know how many Oliver Stone films I've seen, but like, as you're saying all this, it makes so much sense to me how these two echo each other. And then also just like, when you were talking about De Palma making the film, I was like, man, like when you talk about how if he had been pissed off at that point, what he would have done, like, yeah, definitely. Because I already feel this, but then if you put it in De Palma's hands and let him just dive in, I would love to see where this would have gone.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, I'm glad it was directed by Oliver Stone. Simply because he put so much faith into Michael Caine, and Michael Caine did what he was paid to do. And that's important to make, you know, a connection with and realize there.
Mm-hmm. You know, the other thing I thought about while I was watching this, I mean, Oliver Stone has had a very long career. But when I was teaching in person, my film is history course, and I talk about the Vietnam era and talk about things that, you know, people at the time weren't ready to talk about. And so Oliver Stone had gone to Vietnam, come back, and he had this whole struggle with approaching topics that people might not be ready to talk about. I mean, one of those being Vietnam, because he was trying to sell a screenplay for Vietnam. And of course, you see him cover it a couple of times as both a writer and a director. And when I was watching this, I thought of the same thing. There are a lot of things that come up, whether it's his character, the bum, or it has to deal with the way that people are talking, or at least Michael Caine's character is talking about therapy. There are a lot of things that come up in this film that he's basically throwing in people's faces and saying, like, you know, here are people that you ignore on a daily basis. You know, they're obstacles to you, which is what the bum was to Michael Caine. There's and then of course he just kind of, you know, he gets his because once you watch the full film, you're like, holy shit, he killed the fucking bum in the alley. That's what happened. You know. So, you know, there's that, and there's the whole thing of, you know, having to deal with trauma in a productive way by going to therapy. And his whole thing is like, oh, I'm not going to therapy. That's bullshit. What, I'm going to pay $1,000 so somebody can say it's because I'm obsessed with my penis, or I can go and, or I'm sorry, I have some complex based off my penis, or I have, you know, for $10,000, I'll have some, you know, issue with my mom, and then I'm cured, but then I'm not cured because I have to come back. So he's echoing the same things that people are trying to tell other people to discount getting help, to discount mental health, or the importance of it. And this is also the time that, you know, there's a lot of funding that gets cut to public aid, or even in mental health facilities. And, you know, it's just impressive how much gets put into this from the writing standpoint and the performance standpoint. Even when Michael Caine's character has that that moment where the other artist is talking about, what changes he made to the project that's going to make it so much better. And just that whole idea of new versus old, or new ideas versus old ideas, or this idea that you have to stay on this one path and you can't veer from it because there's no there's continuity, there's no change. Whereas you're seeing how, even Michael Caine's character, which the character that he creates, Mordo, is basically, he's talking about himself. It's like, he doesn't think, he just acts, he does this. And then you see how that same thing is going on with him with those blackouts. He's not thinking, he's just doing. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that get thrown in here from the writers, the directors, as well as Michael Caine's performance to really talk about things, whether they intended to or not, but talk about things that people weren't necessarily ready to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, to me, I think that's one of the things that Oliver Stone has always done in his career is to bring up, I guess, for want of a better word, controversial subjects. Mm-hmm. And he likes to explore them in different avenues, in different ways. Sometimes the same subject over and over and over again. But at the same time, there's some themes of his that I personally don't like. But he does cover one theme that we go through as humans, and that's, especially if you're an artist, and you talked about it earlier. What do you do when you lose the thing, your connection to your art? And he lost his hand. Mm-hmm. And they even show him trying to draw with his left hand.
Right.
Which, if you're ambidextrous, I have a feeling that even if you were ambidextrous, that you would still have a dominant drawing hand. Okay, and this isn't a situation like the famous Bernie Wrightson when he had his hand surgery and had to reteach himself how to draw.
Oh man,
yeah, and I think what he did is he drew bigger. And he still got the same effect. It's just like, instead of making really fine little strokes with this little ink pens that he was using with fine points, he went to using Sharpies with thicker points and just drew on a bigger scale. And he still had the same stunning results. This is a guy who his connection to the paper is gone. That the ink, the hand ink paper, that medium is gone. He has to try to learn how to do it with his left hand. He's not bad. He did a lot better than what I expected. That could have been a really comedic moment.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, if you don't think that it can be funny, then if you're right-handed, try to write something with your left. In all seriousness. Mm-hmm. Have a couple of beers and try to do that. You'll giggle for hours.
Well, and even all the muscle memory involved and everything else, like that doesn't just translate to your other hand.
Right. So. And that's, I guess a lot of, non-artistic types would be like, well, at least you got your other hand that you could draw with, you just train it. And hands are not like eyes. It's like, and from what I understand, I've never lost an eye. But if you have trauma to an eye, the other eye, no matter how unless you're blind in it begins to make adjustments, because it's kind of like why you have two of them, right?
Right.
It can't perfectly adjust. In other words, you're still going to have to turn your head pretty far the other way when you're driving to be able to see if there's someone behind you. So you're going to have to do some work, but it automatically starts to adjust. Kind of like if you lose your hearing a little bit in one ear, the other ear will kind of compensate its sensitivity. And your brain does that kind of stuff. Hands, and not so much. They don't just do that. It's like, well, I could do it with this hand, So of course they're gonna, if he's a famous comic strip writer, and they don't want to lose the strip, so he can write the tales, but they're gonna bring in a new artist, and it's of course Charles Fleischer. As soon as I saw him, I was like, that's the guy from Zodiac in the basement. And he's about to, and I'm just waiting on him to go, but we're all by ourselves up here. I mean, there's no one else here.
Somewhere Max Booth III just shot up and went, somebody said Zodiac.
I know. He's like, huh? they're talking about Zodiac again. But yeah, and Fleischer's young too. I mean, this movie's 81, so of course it makes sense. But I was like, hey, there's a Zodiac guy, you know. But the crude drawing and all that, you really don't even get a chance to read what all that he wrote on that page. That is art. That is, I guess, his agent sees or his boss. And man, it's like some really, really bad shit about this new artist, you know. And even Lansdale, the character, he's like, where the fuck did this shit come from? Mm-hmm. You know? And we've already seen him trying to practice drawing in his hand. The cat done scared the shit out of him and jumped through the window. Strongest cat in the world, by the way.
No kidding. I was like, man, I'm glad that cat doesn't live with me.
No, my cat has tried to do that multiple times, and she has never succeeded. She has always ran off embarrassed. And then, of course, you know, the creepy stuff with the stacked up wood and everything like that. That kind of leans to there's actually a hand, and this isn't in his head. Mm-hmm. But then that whole incident could have been in his head. So these scenes, and then he starts having these blackouts. He starts seeing a hand in the shower. You know, his mind is, coming unraveled due to the weight of, his wife. And obviously she's having an affair. He's losing his job. He's losing the one thing that has made him, Mandro. He's losing it. He has lost it in so many senses. And he, so he, of course he's going to, leave. I'm going to start all over. I'll be a professor, and, which, I mean, shit, if I was in his position, I'd probably do the same damn thing.
Yeah. He's just trying to find control somewhere in his life, Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's the thing he knows he can do.
And, and it to him, it beats therapy. And because therapy for someone like him is just, it's not that he couldn't afford it. It's not because that, just doesn't feel like he needs it. When, man, he needs it more than anybody. He needs it bad. And we never see it ourselves. You know what I mean? And we never see it. Mm-hmm. If someone told me, if I was in a bad state and someone said, hey, Bob, you need to see therapy, even with a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology, I'd be like, no, I don't. Because I know me. Mm-hmm. They don't have to drag me there. And then at that point, it'll be really bad and I'll have a court order to go. But yeah.
Well, even like myself with my many stints going through therapy, I don't feel like I go when I'm really down. I go when I'm on my way back up and go, shit, I need some help. But It's not the point where I really, really need it. Because even if you want to go at that point, like everything sucks so bad that you're like, I'm not doing that. Fuck that, So, or at least that's my experience with it.
Well, you found a way to catch yourself on the upswing, and at that point right there, also, it when you're on the upswing, it's really easy to get spiraling back down. So you catch yourself on the upswing and go, okay, now I need to talk to someone, And granted, there's probably times in my life when I needed therapy. I'm not down on therapy. I just know me. I know how I am. But I have noticed that there are times in my life when I could be going either way. And if I talk to a good friend about some stuff, I always come back from that conversation feeling a little better. And it kind of lifts me. But I've also, I guess, there's two types of manic depressive, and I'm probably the what I'd say the good kind, but it's also the bad kind, because I'm manic most of the time. I'm very, very rarely depressed, and it doesn't last very long. The bad thing with that though is I have a really short fuse. So instead of getting depressed, I get really pissed off, and then people don't talk to me again ever. So that can happen. So it's got its good side, but it's got some really.
I've been there. The other thing I always notice is I treat my depressive cycles like that's mental illness, but my manic cycles, well, that's where I get shit done. That's not a problem. It's definitely also still a problem.
Yeah.
Maybe not the same kind of problem, but it still causes me problems.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Don, tell us all of your therapy secrets.
It's your turn.
Skip. Well, I think personally that therapy is bullshit. No. Yeah, I'm the same way, and what's really great, if we're comparing, or at least we're spanning the 40 years since this movie came out, and I would even say within the last 5 years, the perspective on mental health and seeking mental health, the stigma placed on seeking help for your mental health has seemingly gone away. I mean, it's gone away. It's diminished significantly to where if you tell somebody that you're in therapy, the comment isn't, "Oh my God, you're completely fucked up." It's like, "Oh, that's good. Is it working for you?"
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to you're now a pariah. So one thing I would say for anybody who's out there listening, since we haven't said it yet, if you have the opportunity to go to therapy, even when you're not feeling as though I need to definitely go right now, if you have the opportunity to go, counseling services or therapists, psychiatrists, whoever it is, take that time, or even doing the ones that are online, like take that time to actually work through some stuff as opposed to carrying it on and then having it affect you, in ways that you really would not want it to affect you or anybody else around you.
100%. Don't do what I do. Just go do it.
No, I always compare it to. Oh, absolutely. I always compare it to taking meds. Like a lot of people take their meds while they feel they need them, and then they get off their meds, and then pretty soon they need their meds again. Mm-hmm. And if you keep taking your meds in the meantime, a lot of times it may not totally solve it, but a lot of times it makes it better. Mm-hmm. And I view therapy the same way, where if you go even when you think you don't need it, it might be preventing something in the future. So,
right.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not just saying this because my wife is a psychologist and I want psychologists to keep getting paid. Yeah.
I knew it. You're part of the big psych. That's what's going on here.
That's right.
Or whatever the conspiracy theorists would call it. I don't know.
Let me dial up Marjorie and ask her.
Oh, God.
So I couldn't resist. But yeah, another part of this film that I absolutely loved, and yet it's weird to me. Bob, you brought it up a little bit ago. It's the part in the shower when the little handle comes to life and it's kind of like reaching for him. Mm-hmm. Like this part was so weird to me because I was like, if there's really a hand, this makes no sense.
Right.
But so then I was having, like, going back to my argument with myself, I was like, see, this is proof that it's in his head, but I don't think so. I think this could be proof that it's both, that it's real, and that would fuck with you on such a mental level that it would also be in your head.
Okay.
And
mm-hmm.
And what I like about it, if that's the case, if it's both, if it's real and in his head, what I like about it is that this little thing is not the same as the thing that's out there doing this. And I don't know, I think it's such an interesting thing to put into this film from a writing point of view, because it doesn't fit the rest of the film. But what do you guys think about that? Like, do you think that's what's happening, that it's both?
Well, it's hard to say. Like, I mean, there are these moments, because even like we're still talking about this now, but there is that question that you have in watching it. And even when you get to the end, I watched the credits for a little while because I was waiting. I mean, you've been conditioned because of the way movies are made now. Like, some shit's going to happen after the credits. I was still of the opinion of like, well, maybe he's imagining this because now he's in a psych ward. So maybe he had a breakdown and didn't kill anybody, but he had a breakdown and, the family found him, whatever. Right. And this is all still in his head, kind of like Joker. This didn't actually happen. It's all in his head. But then I also want that moment where you kind of like, you just see the little hand walking away, or walking away. I don't know what the hell it would be called if it were a hand, but you just see the hand walking away and into the sun, into the sunset. He claimed another victim.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I never thought of it that way. And at that point right there, it really makes me wonder if both things are happening, then the question is where does one end and the other begin? How that Venn diagram in my mind just kind of like it's all just three circles on top of each other.
Okay.
Right. And so now because you have, ambiguous, you have it's real, you have it's in its head. And now they've all, instead of like being a Venn diagram, they've all just become these overlapping circles. And that's not fair, man. I had this thing figured out. But now you've thrown the old monkey wrench in there, James, yes. And this is like, you really kind of mess with my brain.
It's a monkey's paw. No, I'm just kidding.
The monkey's paw, yeah, you did that. The hands of Arlock. But anyway, Mad Love. There's so many. And I love that little meme you sent me earlier from with the Thing from
Gomez and Thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I'm going to tell you the joke that I actually sent to another friend. My buddy Vincent V. Cava and I send each other terrible jokes all the time. I sent him the picture of Gomez with Thing on his head, and I wrote, Lurch and Thing were played by the same person in the original Addams Family. So that means, since, all humans masturbate, it stands to reason that Thing jerked off Lurch repeatedly. So I just had to share that and ruin everyone's life while they're listening to this.
And now I just have this god-awful imagery of Ted Cassidy standing somewhere just going, oh, yes, Mrs. Addams, yes. I'm sorry, that's terrible. But
amazing.
All right, I gotta ramp it up a little bit more.
Oh no, he's gonna take it to the.
I'm gonna set my drink down. I was about to take a drink, but all right, do it.
You came.
Oh, no, you went there. Oh,
there. I threw in my dirty comment, dirty joke. We're good.
You're welcome, listeners. This is all on me. You can send me your hate mail personally.
But going back to this, I guarantee this is going to be like the whole theme of the whole thing. What is it, real or is it Memorex? This hand. There's so goddamn. I'm telling people, those are the people listening here. This is a really important lesson in ambiguity. This is how you do this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but because there's no answer. It's like, well, how do you do it? Watch this film, and just take notes. You'll see, and it's just that really kind of throws it for a loop, because if it's real and it's making him crazy, then maybe part of it's in his head, but where does it end and begin? It's fascinating.
And I think that's so huge, because we've had other films on this show that try to be, is it real? Is it not? Whatever. And at some point, I always make an argument one way or the other. And this is the first one that I can remember that's ever completely stumped me, and I don't know the answer, which is what led me to it's both.
Well, I can say at this point, I kind of believed that it was both. But before you even mentioned that, before that thought even crossed my mind, I was going to end up saying it was all in his head. And the reason, even the final scene, he killed her. He did it all. And the reason why is because I guess because that makes it more scary than the fact that the hand is fucking running around in my mind.
Absolutely. Yes.
We get this concept of the hand. It's been going on for a long time. I mean, I kind of joked, with Mad Love, the hands of Arlock, that we've always had this kind of fascination with our hands. I mean, Clive Barker wrote a story about hands attacking, people, and it's creepy as shit. The face hugger in Alien was a hand. It originally had eyes. Geezer removed the eyes. Him and Dan O'Bannon, they argued back and forth, and Dan wanted it to look more like a wasp and all this kind of stuff. And so I think Geezer came up with the idea that if I remove the eyes, it makes it even creepier, because it has to find you by feel and instinct. And that's, and so basically the face hugger is a hand with a tail, If you look at the original drawings, you can see the hand shape. So we've always been fascinated with this hand. It's primordial. It's like, what is this thing? The beast with 5 fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have this hand that's now disembodied. And I think that I think I read that he used like 20 or 30 different hands for this film.
Yeah, I read that as well.
That's a lot of hands.
I was blown away.
And here's the thing. Yeah, for what we saw, they all look pretty good. Mm-hmm. I'm venturing that these weren't the old prosthetic, fake rubber hand that you can get at the gag shop and things like that you can order online to surprise your friends. This big floppy thing that won't hold nothing. It's like
it's not even the right color. Yeah,
it's not even right. This thing is white. It's pink. It's actually pink. Is that supposed to be blood? What is that? I can't even stick my hand in it.
They're always like weird sizes too.
Yeah, and man, when you break it, that thing really falls apart. So I had a couple of them because there was a gag shop at San Jacinto Mall about an hour or so away, and they had this massive gag shop there. And I taught my mom into buying 2 of them because the first one will break, and of course it broke. It split right down the middle. So I got her red fingernail polish and painted like blood where the rubber had broken, to where it looked like it was just this bloody hand, and who knows, probably some kid has it. Now it was like it's been handed down from his dad. Some stoner's like, yeah, this dude left it here at a party one time, so, but I know he didn't use those kind of hands, but some of those hands were like really, really creepy. The one in the field. Good Lord.
Mm-hmm. That's the one I was going to pick too. When it's got all the bugs crawling on it. Yes. That shot is great.
That whole scene is great. That whole scene, it's like face hugger POV. Then that's immediately what I thought. I was like, this is a face hugger. It's a face hugger, and he's on, and it's hiding from him, But it didn't have that kind of face hugger look that you would think that would be in an Alien movie. I think they did it in one of them. I know they did it in the Alien versus Predator game where you got to play with the face hugger. It kind of changed the perspective. And that game's kind of a bitch because you get to run on the ceilings and it screws up your whole perspective of everything. But this thing's a face hugger. It immediately came to me and I was like, wow, that's just amazing. And he's like, it's crawling around in the grass and it's hiding from him. And at that point right there, you're kind of thinking, this thing is really a hand. It's alive. It's alive and it's wants something. But then it leaves his ring behind. That's so weird.
How did it take it off? It didn't have another hand.
Right. How did that happen? I mean, have you ever tried? I don't wear jewelry, but I can only imagine if I had a ring and I didn't have another hand, that I'd be pretty, unless that ring was loose, it'd be pretty damn hard to get that ring off my finger.
Well, the ring could have come off in the car accident.
There's Don. He's got the reason there.
That was the only thing I could think of because, I thought the same thing. But like, there's no way the hand could remove it itself. The ring comes off in the accident, but then it adds to the mystery of it because nobody finds the hand. Nobody finds the hand, and even during that scene where they show the police like going through the brush and the tall grass looking for it. All I could think of was when John Wayne Bobbitt's penis got cut off and thrown off as Lorena Bobbitt was driving off. Which, by the way, for those of you listening, Lorena Bobbitt was not the villain in that story. So,
right. I wonder who was.
Yeah.
Don, you've convinced me to write a recap or a redo of this whole movie. I'm going to have a frat boy hanging his dick out the window when it hits the pickup. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Frat boys have not changed that much, if at all, in the past 40 years. So I could completely see this as like, hey, bro, stick your dick out the window. We're gonna whatever.
But man, that kills like my whole concept of having a sequel to this movie, The Hand 2, the fingering, and we couldn't, I mean, now I don't know, man. It feels like you're retconning my idea, man.
Well, I mean, the hand could have hitchhiked.
I think it's amazing that they put the movie poster for your film in this film. It's clearly in his art book. That's the movie poster for The Fingering, right?
Yeah, it should be.
Mm-hmm. And also something too that I don't think a lot of people, because some of the reviews I read on here about this film, they kind of missed something, and I did find something pretty interesting, that the actual comic strip was written by or drawn by an actual comic strip artist. His name was Barry, I think it's Barry Windsor Smith, and this guy's like a legendary Marvel comic and an artist. So the Mandro stuff was actually real comic book stuff. It was written for the film, but it was, that's not just some studio hack, just doing, how's this look, Don? Mr. Oliver, I drew some pictures, so I mean, it's fucking amazing that so many people have missed this. I didn't know it till I actually looked it up.
That's kind of awesome.
It's good that they had an actual comic book artist or comic artist involved in this.
Yeah.
I mean, even for you not to get that much screen time of the comics themselves, it's quite remarkable that they would actually invest that type of energy, because you could easily have like a couple of frames that you have that are part of the story, and then everything else is just from a distance, kind of like you could just reuse the storyboards, but because you can't really see them up close, no one's really going to know the difference. Or at least the average viewer isn't going to know the difference.
Well, I mean, they fucked up the record that they play. It's playing one song. I don't remember what the song is, but I remember in the moment I was like, "That's not the song that's playing," when they show the record going around and skipping. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so they could have easily taken the cheap way on the comic book as well.
Yeah, there were a couple of things that bothered me in the movie, and I guess it's time and maturity and different time periods. But when I know we're skipping past when Stella comes in and the other professor and stuff like that. But I was really bothered when the kid comes back, or at least when the family comes back, and she makes that comment like, when Michael Caine's character offers something to eat or offering her something extra, and she's like, "No, I'm on a diet." I'm like, "You're fucking 5," and just the mentality there of like, this is what this child is saying that early of an age about like, "Oh no, I can't. I've got to watch this. This kindergarten figure." It just struck me as a weird thing to include, but it's not too weird when I think about where we were in the 70s and 80s, where that would have been something that was brought up, but just the whole idea that that's the types of conversations, or at least the perspective we had on children's health, or especially little girls' health, of like, you have to be on a diet even as a young kid. But yeah, there was one line that really sticks out to me, and I wrote down the quote, but I can't remember who said it, but it might have been Michael Caine's character, about you never know who you really are. And I thought it was interesting in the way that trauma or experiences can kind of shape who you are, affect who you are. And we see this take place where, he doesn't necessarily know who the hell he is when he's having that conversation with the other professor. When they're talking about all these things and saying, you have a blackout and I think this happened. He's like, anything can happen. And the first thing he says is like, "Oh, you mean like I could rape somebody?" And I'm thinking, like, why is that the first thing that you would bring up? And, his colleague is like, "Yeah, you could even kill someone." I'm like, we're not going to cover this at all. Like, you guys mentioned rape first, or his character mentioned rape first, then killing. I think that killing would be the thing that you would mention first, as far as like, you mean I could kill somebody and not know it? Or I could go walking around naked in the woods and not know about it. I would just think that it was a dream. I just found it odd that that's the first thing he goes to is, so I could rape someone and not know it. I mean, I don't know if that would hold up in court.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was a really strange direction to go with that statement. That scene's with Bruce McGill,
Yes.
D-Day from Animal House.
Yep.
And
the Sheriff from My Cousin Vinny, one of my all-time favorite films.
True.
One of the best films to include in a legal course.
Mm-hmm.
Or I should say a standard in legal courses now.
Mm-hmm. He's a great character actor. And he's another one who usually plays Bruce McGill in everything he's in. And but I mean, he does it. It's, that's what he does. That's what he brings to the table. And he's not wasted here. He's got some of the best lines in the whole film, and it's his delivery. You don't really know who in the fuck you are,
right?
And this is a guy who's at a community college, I guess in California, who's basically he's teaching psychology, and he's like, to me, he's like the stoner psychologist, But it's like he knows all the theories and things like that, but he's got his own theories about shit, and he kind of explains it in ways that we can all relate to. He doesn't get too over your head with shit, But you mentioned it earlier, is that how Caine reacts differently to different people, how his wife, how he's cold, calculating when he goes to his, agent, his boss, and he tries to be strong and, this is mine and all that. Mm-hmm. And then when he's talking to McGill's character, that he gets, there's like a level of almost sympathy and almost like, hey, I don't really want to scare this, I don't want to piss this guy off. I get that kind of vibe from Caine. But also, he feels that he can use to be manipulative to him, especially, after he finds out that Stella is supposed to be going off to Los Angeles with him and all that. And then the guy's like, Stella's missing, man. He's all drunk and everything. I don't know where she's at. Man, were you doing her, man?
Yeah.
And, and it's like the stoner, and it's like, God damn. And at that point right there, when you're drinking and you're emotional and things like that, all that psychology schooling goes out the way.
Right.
And it's like, it's just raw emotion at that time, man. And that's all he is. He's just a raw nerve. And he really kind of liked this girl. It's obvious he liked her. It's obvious he had feelings for her. And obviously she didn't give a shit about him. I think that in a sense she started getting kind of scared of Michael Caine's character. Mm-hmm. And so that she had, misgivings about the way things were going, that he was being a little obsessive, showing up at work, things like that. So Caine tries to manipulate him, when he's in his car and Bruce McGill comes beating on his window, in the rain and everything. And so to me, that scene is just, that's the manipulation, the kind of like, let me show some tears to get a little sympathy here so this guy will leave me alone,
Right.
And so he acts out differently. There's an inconsistency that leads to it's leading to his breakdown of who he is. He doesn't know if what he's doing is what he's experiencing, the blackouts, things like that. He's really confused. He's at his wit's end. It's really affecting him to the point to where us as an audience are starting to buy into the fact that this guy's fucked up. Like seriously, like there's something wrong with him. He has had a break with reality. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of cements that into place. And it's, that's one of the things I've been working on, and I have a Substack now, and I'm working on a craft thing about emotions, about how we show, in writing and creating, whether you're doing it for film or for arts or for story, for written word, that there's emotions have many facets to them. And in this way here, we get to see Michael Caine kind of show his full range of emotions here. And at the same time, there's a subtext of him being manipulative with them. Right. That is downright fucking creepy. So I mean, this is also a masterclass in seeing how nuanced Michael Caine actually is. And there's different versions of him that we get to see as he takes on this character. And it to me, that's, I mean, if that ain't acting, I don't know what is.
And he's great at it. I mean, that's kind of an understatement. Other thing that I had, well, I mean, it kind of goes out because it's still messing with my head as far as like who, like, is this really taking place? But that whole scene where he's fighting against the hand, it reminded me of that scene, or actually it's been done in several other movies, but it reminded me of the scene from Fight Club, where Ed Norton's character is fighting himself, and he's kicking his own ass in order to basically get a settlement from the company, or at least get paid to continue doing his job, but not doing his job. But that's what it struck out to me was, what does it look from that other perspective that's not Michael Caine, to where you're seeing this take place, right? Which nobody is seeing it take place, but exactly what does reality look like? Because the reality in his head is, hey, there's this crazy hand that's going around killing, and I saw it kill my wife, and I followed it into the garage or into this barn, and I've been able to somewhat defeat it, but it was able to get away. But the police are called by the daughter, and that's when, as an audience member, we're still stuck in that moment of like, shit, was this fucking real or not? Because there's the smell, which it should make sense that if the hand is there, it's necrotic tissue, it's decomposing. There's probably that smell, and that was my thought. I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna find the hand, and they open up the trunk. Which, by the way, that you gotta admire the fucking trunk space in this car.
No kidding.
Because it not only fit 2 full-size bodies, but there was room for 4 more. There was a lot of trunk space. So I could imagine them trying to resell this car and saying, you could fit a whole family in here. But just the whole idea that the police are there, they find the bodies, and now it's like, it's such a mind fuck, this movie, to where you are kind of questioning, like, what the fuck is really going on? To where, and you said you watched it several times, to where I want to go back and watch it because I went ahead and bought it because the difference was like $2 to buy it as opposed to rent it. I went ahead and bought it because I'm like, I need to see this again because I feel like I'm missing something. Or there's some breadcrumbs that Oliver Stone and everyone put into this film or put on screen that we should be able to see and figure out whether or not it's real or not.
It's one of the things that if I have a problem with the film, like a big problem, I have a problem with the end. And I love the ending. I love the ending. I hate how we get there because we don't know how he got in. We just know that he is in one. Okay. Right. So he could have gone through the legal system, found guilty, sentenced to a mental institution for life, and now has this sadistic fucking scientist hook him up to wires and asking him questions and trying to convince him that the hand is not real. Or he could have been in a mental institution the whole time after losing his hand, and everything that we witnessed was a fucking dream.
Right.
So, to me, I love the scene. I feel like that there was something on the cutting floor, probably not, that we missed that did that, now, but at the same time, the scene is really killer. We get this character we've never seen before, who's in this one scene, who actually does pretty good. But we also get to see John Lansdale at his craziest.
Oh yeah.
And we get to see, without any practical or CGI effects, the transformation of Michael Caine.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. It's been going on since the first scene. His gradual breakdown. Once you see this final scene, you realize that he has been breaking down ever since he's lost his hand. It's just that seeing him, the red eyes, that fucking hair, he's lost it. He's So no matter how you come out of the scene, you know, at the end, he's crazy. He's no matter if the hand's real or not, he's still fucked up. He's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
But this transformation, there's very few actors working today that have been able to pull off something what Caine did. It's
so fast.
What's that?
The last transformation is so fast. Like he's having a normal conversation and then he's just insane. So, right. Yeah.
The only other actor I can think of that can pull that off with no makeup and just use voice and stance and eyes. And I'm sure there's some, but I'm talking about great actors. Vincent Price could do that. You know, you watch The Haunted Palace and you see him transform before your eyes as his mild, meek-mannered self to this towering, super, you know, taller than normal, you know, commanding, possessed human, and within a matter of seconds. And it's all done with posture, height, the way his eyes are, his command of voice, you know. And it's like we kind of regale, you know, Vincent Price to these kind of, you know, these shocky films and things like that. The guy was a masterclass actor. Michael Caine, same thing. I don't need no prosthetics. Michael fucking Caine. All I need is a hairbrush and make my eyes look red. That's all I need. And that's what he did. He did this all. I mean, if you watch those scenes, he is also a man who's been beat.
Yeah.
He's resigned to it. He's like, fuck, I'm tired. I'm beat. I'm strapped to this chair. I've got electrodes in my head. My hair's fucked up. I don't really care. You know, I mean, he's just got this whole fucking, I don't care, you know? And it's like, when you first see him, he's well dressed. He's immaculate as we go on the movie. Even when he gets to California, things get a little looser, you know, he's not tucking in his shirt anymore, you know. He's gotten this. You see this. He doesn't care about himself. Mm-hmm. He's obsessed. And it's just, to me, it's like any other actor today, they would have to have, I need something to make me look more crazy. Right. There's some makeup that does that. No, it's called acting. Sorry.
Yeah. I can't think of many actors that can pull it off. My closest one was Michael Keaton. I think he could do it, but yeah, for the most part, that's just a phenomenal performance. And then when I look at, you know, this is one of those movies that Caine calls his paycheck movies, where it was absolutely 100% paycheck. And you were talking about that a little bit ago, but I look at, he didn't have to commit this fully. And yet that's, like you said, how he views the job. And I think that it's so evident in these two major scenes, the one where he loses his hand and the ending scene, how much he cared about doing his job when he's paid for it. Like, it's not just, I'm going to show up and be an actor. He fucking delivers.
Right.
I would go as far as saying that even in his worst films that he has been on record as saying that he did it for the money. Jaws, Revenge, prime example. Yeah. You know, I think his quote is, my mom needed a new home. And that was why he did the film. But regardless of that, he brought a professionalism that you don't see too much today. He brought his A game every single time, even in the worst movie roles ever. He believed in what he was doing. And part of that is because he's playing Michael Caine, but also it's because that's what you have to do. He came up from the old school of Hollywood, where or movie films, actually British, so it's not even Hollywood, you know. But he's been, if you think about it, he's been in some of the greatest movies ever made. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and he can play anyone. He can play the criminal. You can play the old grandfatherly type, but he always plays Michael Caine. And he brings his A game every fucking time. I'm sad he's retired.
Actually, he's not. He's got a few more films coming out. So he's still out there. Because I thought the same thing. Because I remember, I know Gene Hackman definitely retired and Jack Nicholson retired. Because the only other person I would have included in this conversation, we're talking about going from, one mood or one feeling to another, would have probably been Gary Oldman, who would have been comparable to Michael Caine as far as like this type of transition.
Oh yeah, Oldman could have done it. That would be interesting to see if they did remake The Hand. That would be who I'd want to play Lansdale. Would be Gary Oldman. Now that you mention that, he would be perfect. They would go with somebody young, but yeah,
Timothy Chalamet, or I can't remember his name.
Pete Davidson. I'm kidding.
No, that would be. I wouldn't watch it. It'd be a comedy. They turn it into a comedy.
Finding the hand himself.
Yeah. Then it would be the hand, the fingering.
Yeah, it would. Don, do you have anything left in your notes that we haven't touched yet?
No. We've covered everything.
Mine are totally shot as well. What about you, Bob?
Man, this has been a lot of fun talking about this movie, and I'm sure that we could probably pull another hour out of this. But at that point right there, you really kind of, and we've already spoiled the shit out of it. It's like, folks, if you're listening, you just need to watch this film. It's like $3. You can get the blue. You can do like me. You can order it. It's probably cheaper than what I paid for it. I paid $20, so I think I did good. But yeah, this is don't discount this movie. Don't look at the ratings of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're getting ratings from people who think that budget and it's got to tell a story and all that. Look at there's art happening in this film, and it's not just the drawings that Lansdale's character. I mean, there's some really important things here. I think that writers and creatives who are looking at story can learn a lot from this film.
Absolutely. Yes. Especially if you you've said it repeatedly, but especially if you're looking for ambiguity and how to do it correctly, people still haven't decided 40 years after this came out. Like, it doesn't get better than that. Mm-hmm. Like, most films by this point, people at least kind of lean one way or the other. Everything I read online today, nobody could decide. I love that.
Yeah. If this was made today, it'd be another one of those polarizing films, which, I've actually gotten to a point to where I like it when a movie's polarizing. You know why? That means it's getting reactions.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's doing what the director got. Malignant, probably the most polarizing film to come out in the last couple of years. Love it or hate it. You know what? James Wan don't give a shit. You watched it. That's the way you watched it.
Yep. Well, same with Don't Look Up that just came out. If you go on my Twitter feed, at least, everybody's either, oh, this is the greatest satire, or they're like, oh, this piece of shit with a fun ending, or, but it's constant conversation about it. And that's what I like. I can totally hate a film and I'm not going to go online and be like, hey, this is the worst thing ever. I might say it didn't work for me, but if it works for you, fantastic. Exactly. Nothing works for all of us.
I feel the same way. I mean, and there's so much of this stuff in social media that everybody, you have to we're like aligned in these little camps and stuff like that. None of that stuff matters.
Nope.
If I don't like something, I don't like it. But man, I hope to God you like it. I really do. You need to be liking something. That's the way I see it.
Absolutely.
And I like shit that people can't stand. Fuck you. Don't care. If you watch The Hand and you come at me because you thought it was dumb, that's on you. That's all right. That's your prerogative,
Definitely. Well, even with any movie, if I post, because I post on Facebook all the time, like, this is what I'm watching right now, right? Mm-hmm. And I almost never follow it up with how I feel about it, because I think it's really weird. Maybe it's just me, but I think it's really weird to judge whether I should watch something off of whether someone else liked it. It's either interesting to me or it's not. And we live in an age where if you don't like it, turn it the fuck off. There's 9 billion other things to watch.
My standard has always been, what did you think about it? And because I'm looking for some depth, I'm looking for more than, Oh, I liked it, or I didn't like it. So, I mean, you mentioned Don't Look Up. And first off, I'm in the camp of enjoying the film because my viewpoint is I believe the satire was done so well that it can be confusing to people to where they may look at it as like, well, fuck, the satire is too good that people are probably going to miss the joke. And that's where I stand on it. I mean, it's not, just openly in your face. We're going to go overboard with the satire. It's just so clean to where I guess that becomes one of those divisive things, just like with this film, where the division is over whether or not this actually took place, whether or not this is all in his head, whether or not the hand is actually out there running around killing people. Which, again, that would make for a great sequel.
The hand could still be out there killing people.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't even know it. That's like a true crime story, but it could have been the hand.
As long as they don't answer the question, that's all I care about. All right. So I believe that brings us to the part where we talk about other films people should watch if they liked this, which is a great following after I just said, don't watch shit just because someone else likes it. So with that in mind. But
that's not what you're doing, James. We're recommending films. Okay.
Exactly.
Recommending films.
It's kind of the same.
Recommending.
No, it's not the same. This is based off of what we think about how they actually are intellectually stimulating or how they relate to this film. It's not the same. It's not the same. These are answers or recommendations based off of depth.
All right, Bob. So you're the guest. You get to go first, man.
Well, I've already mentioned a couple of them. I mean, an obvious connection is Alien, simply because of Facehugger.
Right.
There's a film that I've heard so much about that, and I've never seen it, and I kick myself in the butt for never seeing it. But and because it's actually a really, really good film, that this is definitely this film kind of channels, as a lot of people kind of compared it to, is Mad Love.
Okay.
And it's an older film. She just got Peter Lorre in there. I think it's like his first American film. And Colin Clive, who played Dr. Frankenstein in Universal's Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. And it concerns itself. It's a romantic story. It's a twisted, mad love story where a gifted pianist loses his hands and has new hands grafted onto his stumps. And he comes to realize that the hands are the hands of a killer.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the eye is the eye of somebody who's seen somebody. So there's this kind of weird kind of muscle memory that happens when you take on someone else's hands. So obviously that's one. The Hands of Orlok, from what I understand, that's like a totally separate movie. But I read somewhere that those basically it's just another name for Mad Love. So if somebody knows the difference between the two, I would know. I did not have the time to look up any of the things, but I want to say those are two separate movies. I could be wrong on that. But it's the same thing. There was one that I've never seen. My aunt told me that she went and seen this movie called The Beast with Five Fingers. And from what I understand, it's about a disembodied hand. And it was on like a 1940s, 1950s movie. And what she said, the movie, you'd have to understand my aunt. She bless her soul, she was hilarious. And she had a way of saying stuff. Mm-hmm. And she said the movie was bunk, right? It was terrible. And she said, but the reason why that it scared her so bad was, she said, she goes, we went out dancing that night, and she said I had a lot to drink, and it was coming home, crashing in bed. And she goes, and I fell asleep with my arm behind my head to where when I turned my head, I saw my hand the night after seeing this movie, after going out dancing and drinking. And she was like, that damn awesome. Movie scared the shit out of me, And I was like, first of all, it's like, how do you fall asleep with your hand. I guess maybe she had her hands behind her head, was like resting her hands, and then she might have fell asleep. But to have your hand like that and see those fingers on the side of your head, and you first wake up in the morning after seeing that movie, that would be scary. That'd be scary as hell.
That's awesome.
So, but movies I've actually ever seen, that any Brian De Palma film that I like, you know, I mean, it's quite obvious to me that you know, Oliver Stone was definitely emulating the style and success that De Palma had, especially with Dress to Kill. Such a good movie that he you know, this movie it feels like Brian De Palma made it, but at the same time we know that it would probably be a lot more kinkier if he did. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But yeah, that's the thing that it reminds me of. That's what I would recommend. And I'm gonna watch Mad Love pretty soon. I know I can watch it like online, but I want to see it like in real high quality. So I need to try to find where I can possibly stream it and, you know, run it in a high definition format.
Nice. All right. So normally I do a double feature. I have 2 films today that I want to talk about. Well, possibly 3, I guess. If you just want something with another severed hand running around, Addams Family. So that could be 2 movies right there. But my true double feature here, I want to go with The Shining. I think watching The Shining with this film would be a really cool night. Don, you brought up Jack earlier, and it's another guy wasting away. I mean, I think he's kind of a little crazy when he even has his interview at the beginning, but like he's falling apart. His family's falling apart, and there's the whole, is it the house, or I mean, is it the hotel? Is it him? You know, like all the ambiguity. And I just think these 2 would work so well together. All right, Don, 87 movies. What do you got?
When I started making my list earlier, I was like, shit, I can't think of anything. And then I took a couple minutes and was like, oh God, James is going to make fun of me. So I've got a good mix of films. So starting off, I would have to keep in with the insanity of objects or things killing people that are disembodied. Slacks, I think it's still on Shudder, is one that I would include.
Slacks
because
is so good.
Yeah, there's nothing like seeing a pair of pants kill a bunch of people.
It's so much better than that sounds. Yes. Like, it is a legitimately awesome movie.
Yes.
I'm about to check it out.
Oh, definitely do. Rubber, about the tire that goes around killing people. Let's see. You already mentioned Malignant. And I would also throw in Into the Mouth of Madness, Christine, Fight Club, I mentioned earlier, Motel Hell, The Stuff. I would also include, and this is, I guess this is because it's Oliver Stone, I would also include Salvador, because the film that he does where James Woods and I think it's Jim Belushi are in this film, and it's in the middle of a civil war in El Salvador, and there are questions even then as far as like between some of the actors and actresses, well, the actors themselves, the Americans, like, this stuff really isn't happening down here. They aren't really butchering people and doing. So it goes into that whole denial of reality, or ultimately the acceptance of reality, or even what your reality is compared to somebody else's. So that's another one I would include. So those are the ones I have.
You know, I'm just going to throw in, if you just want a crazy actor cashing in and giving us unforgettable moments, start with The Vampire's Kiss and then just follow Nicolas Cage's career ever since.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a man that's not only cashing out, he is having a great time, and it's evident.
He's another one like Michael Caine. I mean, it's to me it's obvious he's doing this for the money, but he loves his job. He loves it. He don't care if you like him or not. You know, and it's like I guess he's kind of like, maybe it might be like an existential thing for him. It's like they love to watch me, and I'm gonna make the Nicolas Cage money, and that's just how it's gonna be, So I can totally see that. Now, granted, I felt like in his recent casting that they have missed the boat because Nicolas Cage is Renfield, not Dracula. But I didn't get to cast this film, so I'm sorry.
No, I agree. I think he would be way better. That's pretty great. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Bob, let's bring it back to you. Where can people find you on social media or check out the podcast or pick up your books or anything else, man?
Well, of course, I'm on Twitter at Bob Pastorella. And you can find links to my Substack there, which I believe is just Substack/Bob Pastorella. No, it's Into the Obscuridrome. Golly, I .com something and forgot what it was. That's weird. But anyway, of course, This Is Horror. Over 400 episodes in. We've got some really cool ones coming up. We're going to be recording some more. Of course, that's the thisishorror.co.uk or at thisishorror.com. And of course, please pick up me and Michael David Wilson's book, They're Watching,
great
which
book.
Is out. What's that? I'm sorry?
I said that's a great book. I loved it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Did you read it or you listened to the audiobook?
I read it. Yes.
Okay. Because the ebook's good and the paperback's out. We do have it in audiobook. It was read by R.J. Bailey, and it is phenomenal. I love audiobooks, but I'm not real big on them. I prefer to actually read the words. But when I got a chance to actually listen to my own audiobook from this guy, it was like reading someone else's story. He brings the story to life. So highly, if you have an Audible, definitely pick it up. It is worth the money. This performance is astounding. So definitely, and it's like its own thing. It's like I wrote it, but God damn, he nails it. He nailed it really good.
That's awesome.
And I did have a short story come out in Midnight from Beyond the Stars called Chittering. That is a massive, basically outer space, aliens, abduction anthology. I think there's like over 30 stories. I'm the caboose. I'm the last story.
Nice.
So I kind of, it all leads to me. No, there's some
main
great.
Event.
What's that?
The main events, 100%.
Well, there's some really, really good stories in there. So I highly recommend it. Most people who have been reading it have been loving it. So other than that, I mean, I got a novella, a short novel that I'm hoping will come out in 2022. We'll see. Working on another project. I'm kind of stuck on vampires right now. So I guess that's a good thing because they're back.
Absolutely. You're cashing in at the right moment on it.
Mm-hmm.
No,
as you should.
I do find it interesting as writers how we tend to, like, not even intentionally, but we tend to end up doing a lot of stuff that's not necessarily the same, but like intertwined. And I find it fascinating how our brains work in that way, that even when we're working on one story, our brains are like exploring this potential of that universe, like, again, even if they're not actually connected. I find that fascinating.
I kind of had a initial problem with that, and because I wanted to work on something else, it just didn't come together. And so I was like, well, I got this vampire idea, but I just finished one. And, because we want to do different things. But, I mean, the thing with vampires is kind of like what, if you look at what, I don't know if you've ever read Christopher Buehlman, phenomenal writer. He wrote Between Two Fires, which is basically medieval horror. And so it's really, really good. But he's written 2 vampire books. The first one, the name unfortunately is escaping me, but the one that I'm reading right now is the Suicide Motor Club, where basically it's vampires and hot rods running people down. And so, and then he wrote another one from like a first person POV of a vampire in the 1970s. in New York City, and it's kind of underground. So he's exploring, and it's within vampires. He's exploring like different facets of it, and so the one that I have that hopefully will come out, it's more of a homage to like Fright Night.
Okay.
The new one that I'm working on, it's kind of like The Hunger meets the film Relic that recently came out.
Ooh,
the Australian film.
Okay.
With shades of Let's Scare Jessica to Death. So it's I wouldn't necessarily say it's serious. It does cover more serious matter. So it's like I had the fun vampire, fun, gory, over the top, and now I've got this serious kind of haunting piece that's, vampires, kind of taking it back to, the original, English and European folklore, how these vampires were always kind of haunting people. And I love that aspect of it, because it's like, it's ghosts, but they're more than ghosts, and they're not poltergeists. Those are like possessions. So this is something that's personal, like on an intimate level. And that's what I want to explore. And so, and it's like, am I done with vampires with that? I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see.
I mean, that's the beauty of writing. We never know where we're going next, even when we think we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
Well, I've had a great time. Thank you for coming back on again, man. And as always, you're welcome here anytime. Just hit me up and tell me what you want to do, and we'll make it happen.
And if James says no, then contact me.
That's right. I'll just take the week off. No, I'm just kidding. But awesome. So I guess that wraps it up for another week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm Don Guillory.
And we will see you back here at thenecronama.com.